Hey, remodelers. 2025 is shaping up to be a real interesting year in the remodeling world. Now, there's some interesting things, and we're going to get into them today, so I'm glad you're here. All right, let's talk about it. So, overall, right, the remodeling industry is tumultuous, and it is brutal, and it knocks a lot of people out. That's why every few years there's always new guys coming in thinking that they're going to take over the world, and then they get beat up, and then they walk away with their head between their legs, right? You know the drill. All right. So over the years, this industry, we've weathered some storms. We've celebrated some booms. It's fun to be here when the times are good, right? Now, as we head deeper into 2025, there's one thing that's clear, and this isn't just like another year. This is a transition year, right? And when you understand the tides of the economy and the shifts in policy and the mindset that's required to grow, well, then this could be a make or break year for a lot of people, because remodelers who see the turn coming instead of reacting to it, right, are the ones who not only will survive, but they'll scale, right? They'll thrive. So what is going on and what do we see happening, right? There's a lot to digest here. All right. So when you look, there was what we call the pandemic era, right? And so you have the whole thing in the 2020 range, right? Now, think about this. The average remodeling contractor only lasts 3 to 5 years, and then they're out of business, and it starts all over again, right? Barely 50% of contractors will make it past 3 to 5 years. And by 7 to 10 years, it's only like 10%. So you have a lot of players in the industry right now that are new, thinking because the last few years were good, right? And if you jump back 10 years, there was a period in the middle, right? You had a good 4 or 5 years, and then you had a crap period, and then you had another good 4 or 5 years. So there's very few contractors that have survived and can speak to this. But if you pull back and look at historical data, you can see some interesting things. So let's talk about it. Now, what we had during the pandemic time, right? You had some remote work that came in. So all of a sudden you had a bunch of people having to work from home. You guys know this, and that's what boomed. All these home offices and remodels and doing basements and building additions, right? And it was easy money at that time. There was cheap money, and it was easy to get. So that flood led to a backlog, and it made the barrier to entry really low. So a lot of guys that weren't capable of running a business in a true sense were able to just go buy a couple tools and get into business because the demand was so great. Now, some people have really flourished for that. And now, this last year, they're really struggling. And the reason that a lot of companies have struggled the last year is because they don't understand how to run a business. They just knew how to ride a wave. It was a trend, and the money was easy, right? And now you're seeing who knows how to run a business. If you know how to run a business, you're still doing well. And that will ebb and flow all the time. So it's not that the 2024 was a crash. It was just more of a correction, right? And it really hit mainly the self-employed remodelers. They're the ones that get caught flat-footed. And there's so many guys that think they have a business, but they're just self-employed. And they're the ones that unfortunately get hit the hardest when stuff like this happens. Right? And it's not because they aren't smart. It's because often the barrier to entry was just so easy. It was so easy for them to get in business. They're like, it should work. This is simple, right? Had it been harder, then only the strong would actually get in. But it doesn't work that way. So here's what happens. We have too many people, too many hats, not enough vision, right? And too many people are reactive and not proactive. All right. So let's take a look at this chart for a minute here. Understand that there are changes that happen, and these are remodeling activity trends that go on all the time. All right. So what's important here is that there is good news. You can see we've sort of already had our dip, right? And there are organizations that study this, and they put out a lot of this data. And what you can tell is, like, one of them was, I think Harvard has what's called the Remodeling Futures program. And you can already tell that we're bouncing back, right? Home improvement is projected to reach a record like $526 billion by this time next year, I think Q1. So about a year, less than a year from now. And so that's an actual growth. See, we've already kind of hit the dip, and it's coming back already. So now is the time to make sure that you're setting up your business for success. And the opportunities here, we're going to see unprecedented growth. It's just who's going to be around to see it, right? Because not everyone is. All right. So let's pull back for a minute and say, well, what happens when there's all this economic transitions? Like, what happens every time the presidents change, or a Democrat comes in, Republican goes out, vice versa? Democrats out, Republican is in. Well, surprisingly, it's very similar year after year historically. And here's something to think about. It's not as big of a drastic change as a lot of people want to make it out to be. What gets changed is how things happen, right? So let's talk about it without all the drama. So historically, if a Republican takes office after a Democrat, the shift is as follows. There's less regulation, and it's more business-friendly policies, right? And there is a surge in capital spending. So right now, that's what we're experiencing, right? You're seeing a lot of changes and executive orders, and you're going to see a boom for the next few years. Now, for us specifically in construction, what this all could mean is we may see it getting easier to possibly get projects going, right? Whether that be less red tape, some bigger incentives, right? People feeling more optimistic and making some bolder investments. Now, it could also mean that, yeah, there might be some downsides. There's going to be a little less focus on some regulation, right? Maybe something happened with the environment, something happened with laborers in general, and some infrastructure. So the point is just understand the game you're playing and adjust accordingly. So right now, you're going to see the reins start to come off, and you have to pounce and take advantage of this opportunity, because as somebody loosens the belt, right, and the thing grows, eventually someone's going to come in and tighten the belt up. And that's what seems to happen. So what's interesting about this chart here is you can see how the first year the president's in is the slowest growth, usually, historically, right? The second year, it goes up. The third year is the best year. So you want to set yourself up now for the next couple years is what I'm trying to show you. Because we just came out of the year. See how it dips in year 4? That's what we just came out of when the Democrats left with Biden leaving, right? You saw the dip and everyone was a little anxious and worried. But the next 3 years are going to be really good. So you got to take advantage of it now. You can't wait. All right? So understand this, that it doesn't really matter whether it's tariffs, it's interest rates, it's some kind of policy, zoning, reform, right? None of that makes as big of a difference. What we're going to see is there's going to be some battles this year, sure. People are going to be fighting about taxes. They're going to be fighting about energy regulations. And there's going to be all this talk about the housing shortage. And it's all just noise. Just put your head down and say, I'm in the remodeling industry and I'm going to focus on finding homeowners who want to remodel because they are out there. Stop paying attention to all the drama in the news. So don't wait for the news to tell you that it's a good time, because by the time they tell you next year, you've already missed the whole year of getting ready. Do you understand how that happens? All right. If you're aiming to win, you need to be moving now because you understand how the economy in America typically moves, right? All right. So this is how you get to be strategic. Now, I want you to look at one other thing because this is very telling in general. You can look, goes back, I made this graph. I charted how the U.S. economy has done over the last 150 years, right? And you can see that, yes, we had a lot of things go wrong in the 1920s that led to the Great Depression, right? And we had a huge boom in the 40s and 50s. And we have been riding somewhat of a downward consistent trend, but I think that was a bottom, I think, in the early 2000s, right? I believe that this is going to go up. All right, that's just what I think. When you look at it historically, and the reason I say that is policymakers, and yes, people are dumb and they make mistakes all the time. However, there were certain things that people didn't understand that got put into place when the economy was struggling in the 20s, and they made the recession worse. They have learned from that, and that's why we stopped right here in the 2000s. See, that steep drop right there, we were on track for another recession, depression, call it what you want. And they were able to, right, all the economic people, the government, however you want to look at it, they were able to stop that and get us back and get us to a trajectory. So I think that the next few years you're going to see it go up. So it's up to you to take advantage of that. All right. And look, let's say I'm wrong. Well, then you might as well get out there and make as much money as you can right now because you're going to need it. So either way, your course of action is the same. Get out there, find the people that want remodeling services done, and start remodeling for them today while they can still pay for it and they still have the money. So what are some strategies, right? Look, you want to be collaborating. You want to adopt some technology. You got to figure out a way to grow your team. You got to ask yourself who, not how. It's not how do I get it done. It's who can I bring onto my team to help me get it done. So I would recommend that some of you look at altering or diversifying some of the services that you offer. Maybe you need to focus on the aging in place dynamic. If you live in an area where you have a lot of the boomer market, then what is it that they're going to be wanting for their properties, right? What about, like, are you doing bath remodels and doing a lot of ADA or putting in holds and zero clearance, right? So they can have their cart that they walk, their wheelchair can roll right in and out of a shower. Like, what types of things are you doing to make the house more livable for them? Are you looking at building one floor additions so that the senior person in the house has a nice master suite with a bathroom that they could live in, right? Like some sort of an assisted living wing. Who knows what the market is? You have to be paying attention and looking for it. Now, the other thing that's going to impact, and it's going to leave a lot of remodelers behind, is just being organized and understanding some basic business skills, right? Some of you guys are jumping all in and you have some good tech and you understand how to stay organized with your contracts, your photographs, your paperwork, right? Maybe that means you use some estimating and business management software, or maybe it just means that you're really good with something as simple as like Google. And you have Google Docs and you store everything and you have a folder and you have a drive for each job, right? Things like that make a big difference. So the more organized you can be and the less time you spend looking for things, the faster. And leveraging, right? If you are that self-employed solo entrepreneur remodeler who has like a helper or two, you have to figure out a way to have an assistant, and a virtual assistant, if nothing else, is going to help you. You need someone on your back end that can send out contracts and work with you and do your change orders, right? And help you with all of the back end support that is necessary to grow an actual business. And somebody has to also be helping you stay up to date, right, with the trends that are happening and what consumers are looking for, and possibly any new codes, right, from the building department. All that happens. So keep in mind that you may be super talented, and that's what let you get to be a self-employed guy or girl in the first place. But to grow, you need a team. You have to bring in people to help get you there. All right. So at the end of the day, look, 2025 is going to be an amazing year for a lot of people, and it's also going to be a horrible year for a lot of people, because it's going to be where your mindset is and what you're focused on. If you were riding the easy wave, the gravy train, and you're expecting it to stay that way, you're going to struggle. Right? If you're willing to adapt and make changes and see where you can thrive, then 2025 is going to be a banner year for you, and it's going to be one that is going to let you take off to the races, because there's a lot of work out there, and at the end of the day, it's just who's going to get to it and who's going to be able to handle it. So for some of you, this might mean maybe you look to team up. Maybe you need someone else to help you with your business, right? Maybe you're really good in the field. Maybe you need someone in the back end. I'm not sure what the answer is. You just have to look. So remember, at the end of the day, your fate is not tied to all of the economy. Your fate is tied to how you attack the economy. So get out there and get it.